Don't you, love? I'm just about to start a board meeting. What are you doing? Oh, don't worry about that. It can wait.
Right, 9:30. I think we should make a start, everyone. Good morning. This is the first meeting of the IAWAI board since going live, and go live has gone pretty well. So big congratulations to Peter and the team for a successful, smooth transition to business as usual. And now the real work begins. I'd like to welcome our three new board members, Jennifer Inarangi and Tim. We do have apologies from Tim Manukau today, and Jennifer is joining us online. And we do also have the Waikato Times here today. Welcome. And you're going to take some photographs during the meeting, so please try and smile occasionally. I think today what we've got on is a pretty light agenda, in all honesty, so it should be a fairly quick meeting, and I think the new board members are then visiting the drinking water treatment centre, so that should be a good day out. So let's, without further ado, Peter, do you want to open proceedings with the karakia?
Sure. Ingia, kutaki o ngā kōrero o te wānanga, no te mātāpuna o IAWAI. Mai I a tongariro ki a puaha o Waikato. Ko te kawa ura, he wai ura, he wai nui, he wai roa, he wai rere. Ko te kawa ura, he wai ura, whanau, haramai tinoki, omie, huie,
Thank you. So, as I said earlier, we do have apologies from Tim Manukau today. Are there any declarations of interest above those already covered in the papers? No. Okay, and obviously we've got confirmation of minutes here. It was you and I, Dave, who were in the meeting.
Yes.
Are you comfortable with the minutes?
I am, thank you. Just a board pro, seems like board pro do a funny thing. They put the header in as part of the first line of the item. So it actually looks pretty odd, but
agree. I noticed that as well. So for the version that's gone up on the public website, I've actually manually deleted that bit, so it looks a bit tidier. And I think there will just be a manual process I have to go through.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's not on the version reflected in your
So,
document.
No, that's okay.
so we're confirming the minutes. There is no public forum today, as no members of the public have requested time with us. So without further ado, we're going to go straight on to Peter's CEO report. Peter.
Thank you. Probably the most important thing is just to echo the chair's comments of it has been a relatively uneventful beginning since go live, which is in itself a blessing and a tribute to the hard work that went on to getting us to the start line. Thanks to everyone for your attendance up to IAWAI on the first. In addition to the photo itself, which was quite special, we had a rather amazing day with the rest of the staff as we worked through the getting to know each other, joining things up process. And I think everyone, or the general feedback that we've had is that people felt that it was a very special day, which is what we were aiming for, and therefore a high level of optimism. There are a few teething problems around the place, and at the end of the meeting, I'll give you a heads up on some of the more sensitive things in that regard. But by and large, we're up and going, and it's going well.
Thanks, Peter. Are there any questions or comments for Peter?
Just another endorsement, given that when we embarked on this just 12 months ago, we put with and you as executive chair that safe transition would be the plan, and so we achieved it by those occasions. But now you're live, all the best prep in the world. Once you're day one, you're day two. So fantastic. It was we're privileged to be a tour on the IAWAI. Never been there before, so everybody was able to organise that. So
Probably there's quite a big event going to happen next week, I think, Peter, isn't it? The bills go out. So that's going to be significant for us. But people will be paying in just the normal way for both councils. So no change there. So it should be, fingers crossed, touch wood, should be fine.
Mr. Chair, I just have one quick question, if I could, on page 23, item F. It says several issues with existing legislation have been identified in engagement with the IA. Are those issues significant, and are they likely to be resolved by DIA?
They are significant. They require legislative change. So
Is this allowed land transfer?
So in particular, the land transfer and the interplay between the Reserves Act and the Public Works Act for the transfer of land out of councils. So in a nutshell, water organisations don't exist in the framework of the Reserves Act. So if land like the land at Puketi, where the wastewater treatment plant is held by Hamilton City Council as a reserve, transferring that to IAWAI is very difficult in the current framework. So we're seeking some tiny up amendments to make it work. And officials from what was the IA, now Administrative Cities, Transport and everything else, were convinced of the need to do that, as were officials from the Department of Conservation and Information Reserve. So it's just now trying to make sure we can see that through. And there's a couple of others that they're all in the nature of things that were omissions or not thought of as the Local Government Water Services Act is going through Parliament.
Is Water New Zealand? Yes. Okay, so it can link in with all
Their big housing.
Julian and I met with the Minister, I don't know, 3 months ago, and we raised this specific issue. So he did have his officials in the room and said, get on with it. But I would imagine it's not going to be until next year.
In truth, there are about 4 or 5 issues. They're all issues of detail, really, rather than sort of the fundamentals around the water reforms. And we're in a state of flux at the moment with an election coming up. So probably hopefully the opportunity will arise once the politics is settled post-election, knowing what the timetable is for some enabling tidy up legislation, and probably having a number of board entities sitting around the table with the minister saying, here are 3 or 4 things that you can do so that we can do local water done well even better. Is sort of another example would be the 5-year transition. That's unnecessarily restrictive. Having a longer ability in the legislation would be helpful.
Yeah.
So there are a few things like that, but top of our list is the reserve plan.
Yeah.
In the financial report, been busy congratulating the team on my notes, which the final financials will get on at the next meeting for the establishment phase. It says looks like it's coming in under budget, but it was $8 then.
Yeah, we should get you next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
Okay. All right. Let's we note the CE's report and we move. It's Natasha.
So we don't have anyone from the establishment team here to present the Go Live report, but I think Peter's covered actually most of it.
Yeah.
Peter, is there anything else from the Go Live report that you want to pull out?
Well, I suppose probably the key piece is not so much the go live as the next steps. So there were a range of things that weren't quite complete, or where we need to make sure there's an effective handover from the establishment team to business as usual activities. We're stepping our way through that. Almost everything is now with a clear owner for any subsequent action or resolution. There's a couple of things we still need to sort out off that list, and the remaining people that were part of the establishment team will end their work at the end of this month. So that's in hand. We've also spent some time working through what are the lessons that have been learnt out of the establishment process, and we will be applying those in the way that we think about the end of the water care contract and what we now need to do, because in essence, what we've done so far is lift and shift as is where is. We now need to do the real integration to create real IAWAI as we bring all of the water care team in and have operational responsibility for all of Waikato and all of Hamilton in one place. So we will be learning the lessons out of the establishment to make sure we do that in the best way that we can.
Okay, are there any issues on the establishment reports that anyone wants to raise?
No, just a similar question around the financials. But you'll just do a comprehensive kind of wrap up of it.
Yeah, I mean, in the scheme of things, unders and overs are not material for IAWAI. My sense is the establishment budget was 7 and a bit, and we came in 6 and a bit million, and then there's operating costs on each side.
I assume once we get into the rhythm now and the entity stood up, that there'll be a financial statement every.
Yeah, that's not
And an operational performance report.
Yes.
So,
We're working through gearing up for having all of that sorted and nailed.
Now you can take a breath.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the key thing I suppose to note is, we have simply got to the start line. There is still a lot to do, and it was absolutely minimum viable product. So there's no time to pause it to take a rest.
Right.
We just need to continue at pace.
Okay, let's move on then. We note the establishment report. Let's move on to the governance structure. This is a significant change going forward. Today we've had an establishment board of 3 that basically we covered everything at the board. That group was too small to have any committees. Now where it's recommended that we move to a committee structure with 2 main committees, capital delivery and finance risk and assurance. We've got the membership set out, we've got the detailed terms of reference. I should say, I think it's important that as we go through the year, we keep this under review. We can make changes probably should give it 12 months to see how it's working and then have a conversation about do we need to keep it or make any changes going forward. A number of people did raise whether we should have a people committee. At the moment, matters like health and safety are coming directly to the board, and indeed we've got an item on today's agenda on that subject. But again, I'm happy to look at that in the light of experience, really. Let's see how it goes and we can make changes as we go forward. So I guess the questions here are you comfortable with the structure, the membership? Are there any issues in terms of the detailed terms of reference? Natasha, did you want to say a few words of introduction or?
I don't think anything additional to what you've said.
Okay. So are there any observations or questions or comments for Natasha and Peter?
Just no blues with Natasha on a few little bits of detail on the terms of reference, which have been reflected here. So there's a rapid turnaround from the team. So
I think it's worth actually talking about that because I completely agree with if you just explain the issue, because I think it is critical for us as an organisation
for capital delivery.
Yeah.
So you know, as establishment, the three members of us and 2 here today, about, you know, from a capital delivery perspective, start point really is that territorial authorities across New Zealand have something like an average capital delivery of like 67% against their budget over time. So just over 30% under delivery. I'm pretty sure we've set a KPI for Peter. Might have got wound down from 95 to 90% perhaps of delivery. So it's quite a step change. And then go to what is the dollars. So got 3 billion in our water services strategy to be delivered over the next 10 years. 1 billion of minimum capital, put it that way, and 2 billion of growth capital. And so it is a large program. I think we'll be well inside the top 10 of entities across New Zealand for capital delivery perspective. And so making sure that that is spent efficiently, on time, on budget, getting the benefits out of the program to actually scrutinise from a procurement perspective and really good sort of robust board and governance and oversight to a very large spend. And of course, we're having to price that in for the residents and the commercial businesses as well. So and of course the committee won't have decision making, but the purpose would be to make sure that all those things from property procurement, how we're procuring is competitive, how we get the best price before it comes to the board for approval of those things. But monitor the program. Definitely not doing the executive's job, but it is a large program and a big step up. And finally, potentially from the councils with the LTP process, you know, there could easily have been times when the team said we need to do this investment, and then it went to the council and they said, oh no, you need to defer it or come back in a year and maybe 3 options. We maybe want to do one, but yes, you can have 3. Option 3, I mean, around it goes. So now very different, probably a different environment for Andrew and Jackie and Keith and Murray. They're like, we know they're fully on board already. It will be decided. We'll just be saying, have you done it? Have you done it? Not can we revisit the decision? So that's the purpose of
the thing
we were looking to go.
Yeah, the gist of Dave's suggested amendments were to really narrow it down and really focus on the
3 billion, the
Yeah.
delivery
Yeah.
and the oversight and government's procurement. And not take away the board's responsibility for things like quality, you know, general health and safety of the whole business, but quality metrics and those sorts of things that go. This is actually about the delivery of the program.
So I think Dave said quite rightly that nationally it's about 2/3 of the CapEx programs are delivered, 1/3 isn't. So actually, typically, we're overrating customers as a sector, which is not good news. So we've promised our shareholders a much better level of performance. We've also got to reflect that actually Hamilton will see the final outturn. did better than the 67%, but Waikato district, we have some particular issues with water care. And it was way below. So there was a very significant underspend. So, you know, we've got that national position. Actually, we've got our own problems here that we've got to address. Obviously, we've got a lot of programs in Waikato from last year that are ready to deliver now. So that should
all contracted and in flight.
should help.
Right.
It should help. But I think it's something we promised a high level of performance to our shareholders. We're going to have to keep a real close eye and provide all the support we need, because this is about succeeding, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, delivering the benefits. You know, and if the dollars come under the budget, we get the benefits for those dollars. That's still success.
Yeah.
It's not about just spending money. This is about getting the projects done, the programs done.
I love
for
it.
the community.
If the team get it done for less, that's great. And we have a saving, and then we want to celebrate it. So it's not just a sort of raw statistic. Are there any other questions?
So very given, just, I think it's important on page 34, which is the terms of reference for the Capital Investments Committee. At the bottom bullet point, investment and business case review, says review and approve major capital investment proposals. So the committee can approve major capital investment, but if you just go down to delegated authority on the next page under 3.6, first bullet point, it says the committee has no independent financial decision-making authority.
Yeah, I think the intent, and so the wording probably doesn't reflect it, is that before it goes to the board, we want to run it through the committee, and then the committee can
recommend that.
That's it. That's the intent.
For decision of the board.
Correct.
Yeah. So yeah. No, that's what I thought it was. So review and recommend major capital investments.
Thanks, Tim.
That might. I don't know whether that's the same for the other committees, but in terms of the other terms, it should say on the check.
Okay. Any other observations or comments?
Just one from me. Could we just, I support the committees and the resolutions. Can we just formally note that we'll review the decision not to have a People and Health and Safety Committee within 6 months? That gives the newer directors time to get to grips with the health and safety landscape and performance, and that might be a good time to have a look at it.
Yeah, I'll leave with that. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Any other comments or thoughts?
I thought the whole, do you want comments on the whole thing or just the bits at the front? Got the governance structure up the front, right?
Well, we've got the structure of the membership
And then the
and the
various
terms of
committees,
references.
yeah.
Really,
I actually thought it was really well done, you know, pretty comprehensive in terms of how it's been set out. Also noted that there was no, what I had interpreted as no delegations for any committee really, which is appropriate, I think. And then I've just got a bunch of questions that come out of it in terms of where's this at and where's that at, which we probably don't need to go through today, but at some point pick it up.
Maybe do it offline with Natasha.
Yeah. Because some of it is just about background documents and things like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Are we happy then to sign off and agree the structure, the membership, and the terms of reference? Okay. Yep. Unless, all right. So just moving on to the next item, which I think is the risk register, the risk paper. Yeah. Who's going to introduce?
So I'm happy to introduce this, and I did want to take a couple of moments just to talk about the strategic context and the risks that we are inheriting, just given scale of what we are tasked to do. And I also first want to begin by caveating that this risk matrix and policy are just our starting point, and I am expecting that the register will go through the Finance, Risk and Assurance Committee to be further interrogated and worked through. But that said, what is presented is an important snapshot of where we're at as we take over water operations and the risks we have inherited and need to manage. So we are responsible for the health of more than 200,000 people, the awa, the moana, the health of our environment, 24 hours a day, every day. And that is a massive responsibility that all of us take very seriously. On the 1st of July, we took over water assets from the councils, and we received those assets on an as is, where is basis. And while those assets are generally in good shape, we know that it will take significant investment to keep them that way. We know that the establishment of waters companies across New Zealand was driven in large part by decades of underinvestment in water infrastructure. There have been public health issues across the country, environmental harm, service disruptions caused by asset failure, and that all sheets home the significance of the task that we as IAWAI have, and you as the directors of the board have. So how we look after that matters, how we plan for investment matters, and the $3 billion investment program in the water services strategy shows that significance for us. One of our advantages in managing these risks is that water is our sole focus. We can take a long-term dedicated approach to the infrastructure investment and asset management, but we know that making inroads into the infrastructure deficit that has built up over decades will not happen overnight. And that is reflected in the framing of the risks we have here today. We also face a number of external pressures, many of which are outside our control. Inflation, supply chain constraints, workforce shortages, and broader economic conditions that influence our ability to deliver. Again, though, IAWAI, as an early mover, is well positioned to manage these risks. We have opportunities to establish long-term procurement and delivery partnerships that can improve resilience, capacity, and deliver value for money as we scale up. And our approach to renewals is a tangible example of what we've done on this. The risk register also picks up on, obviously, cyber security, climate change, and overall organisational health. Health and safety, which is a separate issue on today's agenda. I won't talk about that, but it is also identified as a critical risk. And finally, I just wanted to talk about the methodology of how we've come up with the ratings for anyone else that may be listening. I'm sure that all of you are well versed in risk registers, but there is a difference between inherent risk and and that level of risk is before any controls or mitigations are applied. Given the nature of water services, many of our inherent risks are unsurprisingly high. But residual risk represents the level of risk that remains after the controls are in place. It reflects not only the likelihood of an event occurring, but the severity of the consequences should that occur. And as a result, some of the risks are high, even where we have strong controls. And that is because the consequences of failure for public health, the environment, compliance would be significant. And so it is for that reason that the policy proposes regular reporting through to the board and the Risk and Assurance Committee so that the board maintains visibility of emerging issues and our progress. Happy to take them.
Okay, perhaps I'll say a few words and then throw it open. I think the point of all of this is we are in the business of managing the risk, and where you draw the line is actually a key role of the board going forward. And we'll get more into the detail and all the Finance, Risk and Assurance Committee will get more into the detail here. We'll probably find that there are different judgments that have been made historically between the two councils as well. So we're going to have one way of approaching it going forward. I think probably there are a couple of obvious questions for the board. Have we identified the right risks? Is there anything major missing? And have we got the right ratings? Are probably the exam questions for this discussion. Over to the board.
Yeah, I think my assumption on this is that it's mostly a pickup of what existed before, and it's come out of Hamilton City Council and Waikato District Council now combined.
Yeah.
I thought, to me, it looks like everything is covered.
Yeah.
I thought what was useful was the separation of iwi, because the iwi is so predominant here, and hapu and marae at a different level. I thought that was useful. Again, there's a bunch of questions for me in terms of what is that, where is that? And I think one of the other questions I had was, where does risk sit in the structure? Like, is it sitting with every lead, every EL team member, or is it primarily sitting in finance, or is it, is there a head of risk? It's kind of some of those background questions which I don't yet have the answers to, but will come in time.
So if I respond
Okay.
to that straight off, risk sits in the office of the chief executive and
Which is-
the discussion, which is why she introduced it.
Yeah.
But you'll see on the summary of risks, every one of the strategic risks has an ELT member or two that are people that are on the spot. And where Mairi and noted, that's because Mairi's got operational responsibilities in what was Hamilton and Keith in what was Waikato District.
And just on that note, Peter, the health and safety, the safe and healthy environment risk, who I didn't recognise the names there, and it's probably because they are health and safety managers, I suspect, from within one of the two councils. But who are the people as the owners there?
So in terms of workers' health and safety, the ELT member that Gary said is Becca Brooke. So Becca is has the health and safety team reporting to her.
Yeah.
They work across the business.
So Mary and Chris, are they the health and safety managers? And were they the health and safety managers?
One of them is brand new, coming to us from WorkSafe.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't recognise the names. Yeah. Are there any issues for other board members that you want to raise?
Just
Familiar format for me, and I think it's really good. I think you've done a fantastic job to start with. I think the other thing which is reassuring is that these two very extreme risks and high risks, which obviously do drop once they hit some mitigation, that we will have visibility on those, because there are breakfast resource consents or public health as health and safety issue will be brought back to this table on a monthly basis, which I think is good. I mean, even the financial ones, they're in here. So it's really good that, because as a board, we would need some visibility on those high risks, and we should be interested in those. So I think it would be good that they will be coming back to this table. My last comment is I know of the cyber, there's a separate confidential cyber report, which I assume will be going to the financial and risk committee, and they'll probably be interested in that.
Just one thing from me, and it follows on from that comment. On page 69, it talks about who can accept risk, and with extreme risk, which could be a major environmental event possibility or a death possibility of a worker or a member of the public, I think only the board can accept that level of risk. And I think only the chief executive should accept the level of risk of very high. So I just move both of those up one level. At the moment, it says the chief executive and or the board can accept an extreme risk.
People comfortable with that suggestion?
Yes.
Any other thoughts or comments?
No, I thought it was a good paper.
Endorse that. Make sure there's space for colleagues to speak. I think Kevin, you and I and Tim, the other Tim, we've seen these through the course of the last year, and the discussions around the table. So for our colleagues, it's been developed, not just for today, but over this time through the establishment plan, which has been very good. And Peter and his team have recorded things that have happened prior to operation. So we have a sense of how things would be managed, once we were responsible. Also,
and my sense is a key result of that input and the work we've done prior to go live was that the first two strategic risks have been significantly reframed from the way they were in both councils. So a focus on harm to public health and environment and on people, and we're not as front and centre as they are now.
Okay. Can we agree the risk approach then as a board? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Let's move on to health and safety. I'll say a few words now. Ask Becca to introduce it. But we are in the business of, this is quite a high risk business, isn't it? You know, we use potentially dangerous equipment on a regular basis. We handle hazardous material daily. Occasionally we have to deal with natural events that are dangerous as well, and therefore good health and safety culture is absolutely critical, so that we keep our staff safe, we keep the public safe throughout, and the environment actually. And I guess the exam questions for us today are we comfortable with the approach, including the critical risk or ties? Is there anything missing? Is there anything there that causes concern? And are we comfortable with the reporting framework? One thing I would like to raise, we have discussed this before, and I know that Natasha has got it on her radar. I think it's critical that we as a board do, as individuals, perhaps with the executives, have a program of visits to go out and see for ourselves. And it's part of how we do things around here. You know, I've said to Natasha, I'd be keen to do maybe 3 visits a year, hopefully timed around a board, perhaps with a senior exec, to go and visit a facility or whatever. And I think that should be a discipline we're all doing as executives and boards together, because we are the PCB new here. So I just, it's something that you've got on your radar, but it's not noted in the paper. And I would like that amended, just to note that we will have a program. I'd like to encourage Natasha just to get on with it and make sure that we just do it as part of our regular board work, really. But I'll throw it over. Jennifer, may I, well, I'll ask Becca to make the introduction now. Jennifer, with your WorkSafe background, be keen to get you to come in first, if that's okay. But Becca.
So this is, as Kevin's outlined, this initially is to recommend a board level assurance approach for monitoring health and safety critical risks within IAWAI, in line with the upcoming changes to the legislation around Health and Safety Act as well. I did just want to introduce 2 very key people who are here today who will be supporting us around health and safety going forward. So we've got Marie Snowball joining us here today, and Chris Lloyd. So Marie is the Health and Safety Lead for Hamilton City Council, and will be continuing to provide a level of shared service support across IAWAI as we develop our health and safety capabilities. Chris is our brand new health and safety lead within IAWAI. He brings with him a wealth of experience, having worked previously for WorkSafe for a number of years around capital projects, LINs, and a number of other areas as well. So very lucky to have him here, and he's already proved his worth. I've been here a couple of weeks, getting stuck into a few things out at the plants with Myri's team. So I might, with that being said, I might just take, just one other thing. Yes, Kevin, we have accounted for in the review that we would like for the board to undertake quarterly health and safety visits with the exec team. So absolutely agree and support that. I think that's really important. I think we've got a great opportunity at IAWAI to really build a great foundation around culture for health and safety. I think there's really a lot of challenges, but a lot of opportunities that we're seeing out across the business. And the other challenge we have is to work with Keith around the work care integration as well. So what we will bring to you in the next couple of months will be essentially what we are going to recommend as the critical risks, and that will cover for Hamilton and for Waikato as well. So we just need to do a bit of work around that to make sure we've captured everything right across our jurisdiction, and we'll bring something back to you to have a look at, dive into, ask us questions, challenge us around any of the controls as well.
Thanks, Becca. Jennifer, do you want to come in first, and then I'll invite the other board members to make comments?
Oh, thank you very much. Look, it's a very good paper, and the approach certainly reflects best practice. I think my comments are only about things you will already be aware of, but just to say them for the record, is that the biggest thing we'll have to be aware of is the what was well expressed by the judge in the Gibson versus Maritime case, which is that you can have the perfect model, and design effectiveness can be high, but if you don't check that operational effectiveness on the ground is actually in line with that model, then you're not doing the due diligence that officers and directors expected to do. So I think we'll have to balance making the perfect model with actually the assurance on the ground that that is actually resonating with someone out at 2 o'clock in the morning doing a fix. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
It's about the culture throughout
Yes.
consistently doing it, isn't it?
Yes. And the really key thing I will want to come to grips with quickly is the culture and competence of the first line supervisors, because that's the most, if that's good, the board can have the most assurance that things are actually working on the ground.
Wise advice, thank you. Any other comments or thoughts on this?
I thought it was good too, actually, and probably, people, to see, but it is what's happening out there.
Yeah.
And it is the board being visible and showing support and, and interest in how our people are faring out there as well, So getting out and about this stuff, really, really important. I hope you do have that in the plan. Looking forward to today.
Three points if I can. I note on page 71 about a future workshop. So looking forward to that. And I did think 13 critical risks were a few too many because I was trying to remember them. I struggled to remember the 13. Like there's working with animals and there's things like lone worker which have to be the energy, chemicals, etc. But whether they can be, I don't know how our team would remember 13 critical risks. So nevertheless, I just made that comment. And then one that I know you've been aware of, but is around the wellness piece. So it's not just the health and safety, but health, safety and wellness. And I guess we'll be doing an engagement survey at some point to make sure we're asking about, what is the attitude to feel safe at work, unsafe spaces, bullying, etc., which aren't necessarily health and safety, but definitely in the wellness space, and working through from that. So certainly, I'm sure as a board we want to see then snapshots out of that to go, well, how are our people feeling? So there's the nuts and bolts stuff and everything else has been talked about, what's actually going on, but just reinforcing the wellness piece of health and safety.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Great report, thank you. Thank you, team. I love it.
I just wanted to make just a couple of comments in relation to that, if you don't mind, Kevin. Just
Yeah,
in
go for
terms
it.
of one of the critical risks was mental health.
Yeah.
So absolutely agree with you around that wellbeing piece. I know it's a really big focus here for Marie and her team, and I'm sure that will be translated over to IAWAI as well. And then in terms of, we have covered off in the paper that we will be doing engagement surveys and covering off questions around health and safety, because I absolutely agree it's critical in getting a gauge across the organisation as to where we sit.
Yeah. And if people feel safe to stop work because they think it is unsafe, and what permission people have to actually do those sorts of things, and what you can level for an unsafe work should be top of the list, really. Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
So just look, I thought it was a really good report and well done, everyone. If we're going to do a deep dive in the near future, my impression from the last year is we're inheriting good health and safety cultures from the two organisations, three if you the Watercare Waikato district. So we have, we should look at the track record. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
From what I've seen. We are an unusual organisation. We don't really do that much direct delivery. I mean, we do operate the treatment centres, which deal with hazardous materials. So a lot of it is a little bit nuanced, isn't it? Through contracts that we've got. We've got a very big supply chain here with that 300 million of, on average per year of CapEx programs, and a lot of risky stuff done by our partners. So it's it's part of a deep dive. We can look at the commissioning process and the management process around that and how we deal with health and safety as part of it. I'd also be keen, and I know Peter has got some stuff going on in terms of organisational development, and that needs to be comprehensive in terms of the new organisation. But one strand of it needs to be, what's a good EY manager, and one element of that is the health and safety culture.
Thanks, Kevin. I suppose it's important for us to remember that we've got about 50 people based at Duke Street that are out and about every day doing manual work and engaging on the network, and about the same number across work here engaged in things. So we spend office work on the tools as well as all of the things that happen in construction. And certainly when you visit Puketi, you will see a live construction site that is very significant in the middle of an operating wastewater treatment plant, and all of the issues that go with how you make sure that everybody is safe in that environment. Next thing for me to say, I suppose, is from the work that we've done already in visiting sites and understanding differences in the way that we work, there are a number of quite significant differences between the way in which work here runs things and the way in which Norton City has historically run things. So Keith and Maury are now charged with working through what are the differences, to what extent are they cultural, there real benefits from one way as opposed to another, what are the inconsistencies, how do we take what we've got and turn that into the IAWAI way of operating. And then for me, I suppose the next key piece is how we then translate that through into all of our contractors and making sure that they have the same are meeting or exceeding all of their expectations in the way in which they keep themselves and members of the public safe. So there's quite a lot for us to do. We've got a sound starting point, but we will be busy.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, are we comfortable supporting the health and safety approach for the organisation, and knowing that we're going to have a deep dive on this subject in the near future?
Yes.
Thank you. So the final item for the board in public is the easement policy adoption. It's sort of a tidy up process and make sure we've got a consistent approach here. So
Kristen here to talk to.
Kristen, are you going to introduce it?
Yes.
If I introduce Kristen,
Sure.
Kristen joined us on my purpose. She has been managing all of the property related things in relation to the transfer of property, and she's the one that identified the Reserves Act land transfer problem for the whole of the country.
Would have come up.
And having identified that problem, it didn't put her off coming to work with us in the resolution of the problem. And with that, by way of introduction, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. So thanks for the intro. So I'm here this morning to recommend that the board adopt the IAWAI easement policy. The policy is intended to set a clear requirement for easements to vest in IAWAI for public utilities where there's new or existing infrastructure through a subdivision. So it's really the scope of the easement. It will provide some surety around IAWAI's rights into the future, ability to access property and maintain infrastructure. We expect it will reduce the risk of damage from unconsented or unapproved activities within close proximity of our underground infrastructure in particular. And it sets some standard minimum widths for pipeline easements, so dimensions for easements, with some flexibility for the head of activity management to approve variances. Since the paper came to you, we've had some internal discussions about how that fits in with operations, and proposed a change to firstly remove a minimum
1 metre separation distance between pipelines to allow that to sit within the engineering scope of decision making, but also to provide for consultation on any decision to reduce the minimum widths in the specific situations with the GMO pumps for the appropriate area. That's it in a nutshell. I will take it as read and I'll come to any questions or comments.
Thanks, Kristen, and welcome.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from board members on this?
I think I certainly understand the need for it, you
Yeah.
know, in terms of accessibility and all those sorts of things. Just that those comments around variations. I guess it's understanding the extent of that over time, or as it happens, whether or not any sort of exceptions reporting should be created out of that, up to the board. Also conscious of sorry, I'll put a landowner hat on. Maybe that's because it's where I tend to sit. But also thinking about if exceptions can be made, then should those exceptions actually be the rule? You know, it's just thinking through that. And again, that's probably, I think, something over time. I get that what we would prefer is what's in the paper versus what exceptions might be made. And then the other thought I had is just the enforceability of this. So I assume as you do subdivisions, that's relatively straightforward. You're dealing with a sophisticated kind of, your assumptions it's sophisticated development. They understand the need for these sorts of things. But it just kind of raised for me, do we understand what the level of infrastructure is that's out there that does not have easements over it? How big is that? Is that a big problem or a little problem?
Yeah.
Is it manageable? Those sorts of things. And then, and can someone say no?
Yeah.
And if they do say no,
What happens?
yeah. So do we withdraw the service? Do we make other arrangements? Do we just have a really long conversation and negotiation? I don't know.
So
A few questions there, sorry.
If I answer a couple and then I'll pass over to Kristen. One of the reasons for this policy is Waikato District has had a long-term approach to requiring easements everywhere. Hamilton has been more flexible.
Yeah.
And when we looked at that inconsistency, we came to the conclusion there are sound benefits from requiring easements everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Which is kind of where I sit.
Yeah. And one of the key reasons for that is the new legislative access process, the process for requiring access to someone's land is so complicated and cumbersome that it can take 55 days, I think we calculated, from when you start to when you might actually be able to get on to do something, unless it's an emergency. Whereas through an easement, we can create the ability to do things in a far more direct and seamless way.
Yeah, and I understand all of that, yeah.
In terms of relative scope of coverage or issues, Kristen, are you in a position to address that?
Look, I don't have clarity on that, but we do have the benefit of easements from both councils from over 100 years. So there's an existing network, but it's not comprehensive. This wouldn't create a comprehensive network of easement rights. It would only facilitate the creation of those rights when properties are subdivided. So saying, hey, look, you're subdividing this property. While you're doing that, we need you to register an easement over A, this existing infrastructure that runs through your property, or B, any proposed public utilities that you think need to go through these properties. So
well, we don't really know how big the historical problem is, but we think there's a reasonable amount of
we will get
coverage there. And then this fixes all the future.
That's right.
Aspect of it.
I think it would be fair to say there are significant parts of the network that are within private property without easements within the urban environment.
Particularly for wastewater.
Particularly for wastewater. And then within that subset, a very large proportion have existing commercial buildings or residential properties built over them as well.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the policy. I think
Yeah, but you're
I
right.
understand it.
It's obviously dealing with quality of it.
If I may,
So sorry, the last question was if someone said no, what would we? What
yeah, I was hopefully going to address that. So if I may, just to the chair,
In terms of the Waikato experience, not familiar with the city experience, and Andrew and Murray are best to talk to that. The RITS is the requirement in terms of any development subdivision standard in which the infrastructure needs to be developed to. So generally, the easement instrument is just the ability to then access thereafter. So the standard's already known and accepted. I've not yet known a developer or an individual who has said no to an easement on the basis that agreeing to the easement facilitates the.
That's right. I get it, it's in their interest, right? Okay.
Okay, so are we comfortable with the easement policy? It sounds like we are.
Yeah.
So we support that. Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you.
And that brings to an end the public part of the meeting. So we now need to move the resolution to exclude the public to deal with the reservoir and pump station proposal in private. Do we have support for that?